Well, thank you so much for joining me, Madeline and Karla. Before we start, I just want to take a moment of appreciation for what the internet has allowed us to do today. It's
Right.
8 a.m. where I am in New York. What time is it for you, Madeline?
8 p.m.
8 p.m. And you're where?
in Thailand.
In Thailand. And then we have Karla, you're originally from South Africa, but you're in Portugal now?
Yes, and it's 1 p.m.
One.
here. So Madeline is also she's originally from the US and they're living in Thailand, and I'm South African, living in Portugal. Where are you originally from,
I'm
Katie?
originally from Canada. It's not terribly exotic, but yes. Yeah, I just think this is fantastic that this is my job and that I get to do this. So so thank you both for
Awesome.
joining me and for reaching out. So where should we start? So, Madeline, your book is phenomenal, and I just really appreciated reading it as somebody who was diagnosed at a much older age. Being able to read these letters to a younger self, I feel like for me is so healing. And a lot of what we talk about on this podcast is this journey of healing our younger self. And so I really appreciated it from even at the age of 50, I really appreciated reading some of your letters to yourself. And I'm so glad you had so much wisdom already at such a young age. So I'm curious for either one of you can answer this question. How did the idea come about to write these letters to your younger self?
Um, I started writing them as a coping skill, but later it turned into something like helping me let go of things that happened in the past.
Yeah. How do you feel that helps you let go when you write a letter to your younger self?
I feel like writing is a lot easier for me than talking, so writing things out really helped me just release it.
Hmm. Yeah. Beautiful. What
From
about you, Carla?
Yeah, from my side, I mean, I've known Madeline now for how long has it been? You're very good
I
with
think
dates.
four
I'm not
years.
4 years, yes. And in the beginning, it's always when you get to know somebody, it takes a while to build that foundation and really starting to trust somebody. It takes a while, especially for neurodivergent individuals. I think that we've had a lot of trauma in our past with trusting maybe the wrong people or not always seeing the consistency of people. So rightfully so. It took us a while to get to know each other, but I absolutely love Madeline from the beginning. And, well, just her way of seeing the world. And she was really good in putting her thoughts on paper. And whenever she had a thought, or I don't know if you want to speak about like the thoughts that you went through, Madeline, but like writing those down and questioning those, I feel like that helped you a bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think it helped me like, see what was the truth and what was the lie.
Mm.
I love how that's put. Yeah. I'm currently working with a lot of I'm currently working in a crisis center with teenagers, and most of them are self-harming, most of them are suicidal, and not surprisingly, the vast majority of them are neurodivergent, either on the spectrum or have ADHD. And I feel like, one of the messages that is so powerful in your book that you really lean into is this idea that you're not broken, right? There's nothing wrong with you. And it's one of the things when I, one of the things that makes me so sad about working with teenagers who are neurodivergent is that their idea of neurodivergence is so negative, right? That it's this thing that they're trapped with, or this thing that it's the explanation for what's wrong with them. And a lot of the time it's really, and they have a lot of big emotions. And so I guess when you're writing this book, or when you were finished writing this book, what kind of message would you like to convey to younger readers who who get to read this book?
Mm. I think just that there's hope for them and that
Sorry, could Karla?
Yeah, it's a big
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question for me as well. I think with Madeline's book is a book of hope, and it's focusing on that whatever you're thinking of in the moment, it's okay, and you can work through that in your own way. Like maybe that's through writing or sharing with somebody. But I think she did a really good job in not saying that whatever you're going through or thinking is wrong. It is there. And it might be that you need to challenge those beliefs, and they're not always true, but it's not wrong going through the thought process. I think that's what you were saying, Katie, as well, is that, we've got all these big feelings, and sometimes we just have to kind of sit with it with somebody or with ourselves if we're feeling safe. Madeline, I don't know if you want to let Katie know about your love for animals and maybe speak about like the way that you are really connected to your dog.
I have a dog named Angel. She's about 7 now, I think, but I got her from a shelter and she just chose me right away.
That's wonderful. I always hear that when you're picking out an animal, let them choose you. You don't choose them. So yeah, I like that. And there's a lot of wonderful animal imagery throughout the book too. There's a lot of axolotls.
I love it.
How did you come upon axolotls, or what is it you love about them?
I love that they can regenerate parts of their body, like their limbs or the parts of their brain even, and their whole spinal cord. So I think that's pretty cool.
I
Yeah, it
didn't
is.
I didn't even know what an axolotl was when I met Madeline. She told me about them and I'm like, oh, these are cool little creatures. So yeah, I really like the fact that I can learn so much from Madeline and her interests and just the way she sees the world and what she absolutely loves. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's such a lovely mascot for this idea of growing throughout our lives, and it's never too late to really come to um have a sense of rebirth or a new identity, or the way you can shift your perspective and look at new things. And I think that's what we talk about a lot on this podcast. But yeah, I mean, going back to this idea of not, there's nothing wrong with me, that I'm not a problem to be fixed. One of the things you talk about a lot in the book is this idea of different, not worse, or not less than. And I think that's such an important message for anybody, but especially younger teenagers. And I don't want to, I know there's confidentiality in the work that you do together, but I was sort of curious how your work started, because you do talk about some trauma and the moves that you did, and kind of having to be uprooted a lot, and your siblings. I was just curious how you found each other.
That's
I
through
think,
your mom, right?
yeah, I think through my mom.
Yeah. So her mom contacted me and we started doing sessions. I think in the beginning it was already evident that you really enjoyed writing. And we would you would write things down in your diary. Um,
I think
just
so.
yeah. So just some of the things that Madeline has gone through, and that slowly became something more substantial. And then I think Madeline's got an inclination to helping others without even knowing that she's helping others sometimes. Like just the shares of wisdom that she has. She'll say something and it will stick with me. And at the end of the day, I'll just remember kind of like what she said. So I think that's how we said, okay, well, why don't we just compile a book and maybe we can add some strategies and maybe that could help others. Because I think that's the one thing, Madeline, I don't know if you want to talk about a bit about your past or like when you were younger, if it was a bit more difficult for you to not
Yeah,
have an outlet.
it was a lot more difficult.
Mm. And
I
yeah,
felt like I would keep a lot of things to myself because I felt like I couldn't trust other people as much.
mm. And I think the animals helped, and then maybe
Yeah,
like writing
animals I
them.
really connect to.
Yeah. Me too. Hey, they're just so easy to connect to because they're always just giving you unconditional love, and all they want is just like a little bit of attention and maybe some food and some walks. My dog, and yeah, and that's so easy. It's easy to trust animals, I feel like.
Well, I also feel like they know when we are hurting even before we do
Mm,
sometimes. I know that like my cats, if I'm crying, my cats will come up immediately and nuzzle me. Like they're really good at caring for you when you are struggling and maybe not able to, talk about it or communicate with other people. So yeah, they're very good therapists in their own right.
yeah, that I
Angel
mean,
really,
yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, no, you were
Angel
saying yes.
really, Angel really knows like when I'm feeling anxious or something, she'll just come right to me. So,
Right? Yeah, they
Yes.
have an incredible intuition. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, and so I guess, now that the book is published, are you still writing letters to yourself? Has this become a tradition? What kind of writing are you doing now?
um, I mostly just journal, I guess, about like sometimes I'll journal, not very often though. I'm not very good.
Yeah, me too. That's the thing. I love journaling and I love gratitude journaling, but I also feel like it's really difficult to remember to journal. I don't know, Karla, if you have tips for using journaling as a way to process emotions.
Yeah, so I spoke about this to one of my clients this morning. The one thing that I've stuck with, so I have ADHD, and it's very difficult for me to stick with one thing for a long period of time. So I'll stick with something for, like our sporadic 2 weeks, our hobbies, our new hobbies, and then I'll just jump to a new hobby, which I've made peace with now. But the one thing that I've stuck with is journaling. Not so much gratitude journaling because sometimes I feel like it's okay not to be grateful. It's okay to be angry sometimes. It's okay to feel the emotion that you're feeling. But I'm doing Dailyo. It's a free app that I just downloaded, and I'm just adding photos every day on how I feel because I don't want to write every day. So I'm not as good as Madeline with writing, but I'm really good in associating a visual with a feeling. So I would do that. I think it's really important to find the medium that you're comfortable with. If it's talking for ADHDers, that's usually the case. So we can voice note to ourselves on a daily basis just to kind of keep track, or if it's visual, or if it's writing, it really depends on what you find easiest, and then kind of sticking to that for a reason. So my reason is I want to associate my mood with what happened. So I want to know why I had a bad week last week, and that would be me looking at the visuals. So I think if we have that reason to do something, it will make us do it for longer. But if there's no reason and it's just somebody on an Instagram video saying you should journal every day, I'm not going to do that. So I think for Madeline, the book was very much like there was an end product in sight. The book was going to be finished, and she said 19 letters to her younger self, which I think is very therapeutic. And it was something that we worked towards. And now our next project, per se, is the marketing of it. And it's quite exciting to be here and for Madeline to prepare for these interviews. I mean, all of this is such a great thing I'm just super proud of her for doing all of this. So I think find your reason.
Right? Exactly. And I think, like you said, uh, with ADHD, especially, we might like something for a couple weeks and then lose interest and move on to something else. And I think that's been the biggest shift for me since I was diagnosed with ADHD is just not feeling bad about that, not feeling
Yeah.
shame about that, and not questioning it or feeling like I should really stick with something, right? There's so many shoulds there that, and I feel like that's a theme throughout your book too, Madeline, is that like accepting ourselves and how we do things and not feeling like there's a better way or that we're supposed to be anybody other than who we are. So I think that level of self-acceptance is really helpful.
Mm. And
I really like that.
confidence.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
really like
sorry.
that idea of noticing what you pay attention to in the images and then kind of just saying like that was my mood, depending on kind of where my attention went. I like that idea.
Mm. So Madeline, also what she would say to me later on in the process is that, today she doesn't want to write a letter, or let's not focus on this today. So she became quite confident in and assertive in advocating for herself through this process. I think it's a great thing for somebody to work towards accomplishing a goal, whether that is writing a book or going to gym or like finishing a course or whatever it is, and then advocating more on how you're feeling that day, if you're okay with your energy levels, capacity, um, and then gauging it kind of and focusing on it when you feel you're ready. That's how she finished it. It wasn't me pushing her. It was her telling me when she's ready and what she wants to do next.
Wonderful. Yeah. One of the things I think is the hardest for me, especially, but also in the adolescents that I work with, is knowing that there are lots of breathing techniques, and I love the finger breathing, the five finger tracing. I'm definitely gonna try to teach that to my kids and try that myself. But like lots of opportunities for mindfulness. It's like we know what we're supposed to do in these moments when we want to regulate and slow down. It's just getting there. It's just remembering to do it in the moment. Is there anything that helps you, Madeline, when you're feeling like the big emotions and you're really, just like really super zingy? Like what triggers you in yourself to slow down and be mindful?
Sometimes I'll just try to sit like where it's quiet and do one of my strategies like the five finger breaths, or the five senses really helps too. It's like what you can see, what you can smell, what you can hear, what you can taste. Just try to be in the moment, I guess.
Hmm. Right? Yeah. I like setting up your environment for you. What about you, Karla? Do you struggle with that? I certainly struggle with like I know what I'm supposed to do in these moments, but
Mm,
sometimes I just want to stomp around the house and throw things.
yeah. Yeah, I think for me it's I just wanted to add something about what Madeline also really does well is she will message me, this is what happened, this is what I'm gonna try and do. So just kind of narrating again, because I think she's so good in writing. So she'll message me when something happens. I think again, finding like the medium that you're most inclined to use is a good thing. For me, it would be visual or tactile. So I would do something, but I would always catch myself at the level that I'm at. So if somebody tells me if I'm like hyper and I'm really upset and somebody tells me just breathe, I get upset because I'm not going to just breathe. I want to do something that is at the same level of the energy that I'm feeling. So if it is like a really big frustration, I need to go and do Muay Thai. So that's my new obsession is like combat sport. So I always try for myself and for my clients and friends to find something that is at the same kind of energy level and interest that you're at, so or that you like. So for me, it would be something that is high energy when I'm feeling frustrated. So I need to go run. I can't just do breath work. I need to first decompress and really calm my nervous system, and then I can maybe engage in breath work. But I think yeah, it's finding what works for you and that you like. Those two things are very important.
I appreciate that distinction. Yeah, because it's like you've got this thermometer of where you are in your distress level, and as you were talking, it just reminded me of like that's why I rage clean, which is what I call it. Which is
Nice.
when I'm really frustrated, I'll start like scrubbing and cleaning something, and I realize that that's how I'm regulating myself to get to a place that I can then calm down and start breathing. And
Yeah,
yeah.
I wish I had rage cleaning. That
It's
would
the
be
only time. I always say if you want me to clean anything, get me really angry. Um,
I often organize my like room when I feel anxious. I'll organize a lot. Just
Mhm.
say, yeah, right. I think there's something very literal about like wanting order or wanting control during a moment when we might feel out of control otherwise. Yeah, I think it's all sort of that same idea of how we bring ourselves to a state of regulation.
And
Um,
if the space around us is maybe more organized, maybe our brain also feels a little bit calmer. so we could breathe in a space that's a little bit more organized. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a really good analogy
Yeah.
to, I just have
So,
to do it.
so Karla, how old were you when you realized you had ADHD? Or when you
So
started to think I should look into this?
So I didn't. I started in this field about 21 years ago, and I absolutely loved working with kids with ADHD and autistic kids back when nobody really knew what was the difference between artistic and autistic. So it was really back then when everybody just thought, oh, it's either Rain Man, or they didn't really know that it's such a spectrum of individuals. But I clearly remembering going to my psychologist, and his name is Ben, and I was telling him something about a project that I'm starting, and he's like, "Oh, it's because of your ADHD." And I was like, "Wait, I like, what are you talking about?" So I didn't actually notice. I just thought everybody had so many projects and so many thoughts and feelings and sensory overload all the time. So it was by accident, I think, and then I went through the process, and I got assessed through him and then through another doctor. And then my third time, lucky, I got the same diagnosis here in Portugal. So, we always we want to check that we're not imposters. Got diagnosed 3 times.
Although I sometimes I say that if you're really, really worried that you're faking it and that you aren't going to be believed when you go to talk about your diagnosis, that's usually a sign you're on the right track.
Yeah, exactly.
Because so many of us are so familiar with masking and also feeling like, is it really so bad? I feel like we
Mm,
often doubt our own struggles, and we often are the first ones to invalidate ourselves when it comes to what we're going
mm.
through and whether we should or shouldn't feel it. So um yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, and what I tell my clients is that it's not like, or friends sometimes when they don't think that I have ADHD, I'm like, it's not like I want to be part of the DSM. It's not like we're putting up our hands and saying, please to give me a condition. It's hard to deal with autism, ADHD, with the sensory overload, these thoughts that we talk about, Madeline, you and I. It is a difficult thing. It's not something that we're saying, oh, please, can I have those? But accepting it is different than, wanting it. So I think that's a clear distinction there.
Yeah, right. And I guess also that idea of like, how am I going to live a life worth living, right? How am I going to live my best life um lean, appreciate myself for my strengths, like you talk about in your book too. I think it was like, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm thinking there was a line that you said, Madeline, about, you're might not be smart at one thing, but you're smart at other things, right? And I think we have such a narrow view of what smartness looks like. And I know for me, I really, really struggled in school. And so I just assumed because I had dropped out of university and, that I wasn't smart and that was just the label I gave myself. And so I think, there's the ways in which we label ourselves certain things. And also, I don't think it comes out of nowhere. I think we also receive that label from other people. But I think, such a wonderful element to your book and to the letters that you wrote to your younger self is just kind of like what Karla was saying, like this isn't necessarily, there's nothing disordered about who we are and how our brain works. It's mostly just, how much we end up in distress, uh, depending on the situations we're in.
Yeah, in a very typical world. Yeah, I think Madeline did a great job in becoming the main character in her book. I think that's something that I thought was really nice with it's like narrative therapy, right? Is how she spoke about her past and then took control of it, which was really nice. So I don't know if you felt like that, Madeline, if you felt like throughout the process that you became more of the main character in your life.
Yeah, I think I did. Felt like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I recently took part in a similar book where a bunch of adult women who were neurodivergent wrote letters to our younger selves, and it was such a healing process. And uh, it, I think there is something very helpful in using, like you said, a character of our younger self as somebody that we can show kindness to if we can't necessarily show kindness and generosity to our present day self. Often thinking about that little girl and what she might have needed in that moment. Now, so how did your family end up in Thailand? You've moved around a lot in your years. Can you tell me a little bit about your
Um,
adventurous life?
so I moved to China when I was 7, and then we got kicked out when I was 16, and we now live in China.
And Thailand.
Thailand,
Or
I mean,
Thailand?
sorry.
And they're missionaries. The family is missionaries.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's why
Yeah,
they're
all right.
moving.
Um, yeah, and the theme of your relationship with God is also in the book too, which is just a lovely way, can you tell me a little bit about how you understand your neurodivergence through a Christian lens?
Um, I, s- I see it like that God made me wonderfully and that He doesn't see me for my flaws.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think you were speaking about in the book as well that you were saying that, God made you a certain way and there's a reason. So that kind
Yeah,
of like leading into that reason, and using also God's support as strength for you.
yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the what's the analogy of like trying to uh having a fish and a monkey climb a tree and
Yes,
you know,
Einstein, right? Yeah,
right? I'm butchering that. I don't remember what the analogy is, but
yeah.
basically like,
If you measure intelligence with a fish climbing a tree, you would be seen as not so smart or something like that. I'm also not very good with analogies, but yeah,
right? But that idea
yeah.
of, that we were all created to flourish in the area in which we flourish. And
Mm,
so stop trying to. We also talk a lot about that in the ADHD world, or at least in this podcast, about that feeling of trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And,
mm,
that you really just find the places where you fit and where you can flourish.
And I
yeah.
think I got that from like that from Temple Grandin that like different, not less.
Oh,
Right?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The quote that you were speaking about earlier,
Oh.
Madeline's really good in giving credit where credit is due. And that quote is from Temple Grandin, where she says, I'm different, not less. So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, we're hoping that Temple Grandin's also going to read the book soon. We've sent it to her.
Oh, wonderful.
Sent her a portion, yes.
Yeah, so what does the marketing part of the book entail now?
So it's speaking to you, and then we're speaking to another person on Thursday. So we're speaking to an autistic influencer on Thursday, and then Madeline, you want to do a few more podcasts and interviews, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we're speaking to quite a few people just to, well, not too many. We just want to kind of take it one podcast or interview at a time and then share. I think because from my personal, maybe a little bit selfish point of view, it's because I can see how it has helped Madeline and I can see how it could help others too, other young neurodivergent individuals on this journey and just writing letters to themselves. And maybe this book is a starting point for them to see, okay, I can also do this. I can write a letter to my younger self and maybe just accept and love me a little bit more for who I am. So, yeah, she's gotten some great reviews from people that have read it. So I'm just excited for other people to receive some help from her wise words.
Right? Well, like I said, I'm 50 and I found it tremendously helpful for myself and my relationship with the younger version of me that really needed a lot more validation, a lot more understanding, and a lot more help that I didn't receive. So I don't know if you were expecting a 50-year-old uh, to find your book as so helpful, or who your audience you was when you were reading or when you were writing this book. Who did you feel like you were writing it, or who did you think would be reading your book?
I think young adults and teenagers more like, but I think because some of the content is a little heavy, but I think the visuals are quite cute.
I think
So
that
I'd
sums
say
up what it's like to
see
be a
reading a
teenager.
book.
Is, you know, we there are a lot of heavy things that happen to you, and there are a lot of very like dark adult topics in our lives that, you know, we wish we could have been sheltered from a little bit longer, but then also like allowing that child to still exist and color and that playful side. And I think that's kind of the beautiful and terrifying part of being a teenager.
Yeah, I think an adult as well. Like I'm 41 now, and I feel like I just need shiny things around me to make myself remember who I am, and still have that childlike view of the world. I absolutely love being childlike still. That's why I like working with younger individuals too.
Same, same. I think it's new to me to work with teenagers, although I have two teenagers at home, and absolutely my favorite population to work with. And I
Mm.
don't, yeah, uh, I feel like a lot of a lot of what is needed is just validation and understanding, and not, reinforcing this idea like you do in your book, Madeline, that like you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you. And like you said, Karla, there's no such thing as bad feelings, right?
Mm.
We can feel what we need to feel, and it's really about how we cope and what tools we have in our toolbox.
Yeah, and then no judgment. I think that's important. No judgment towards yourself and then towards the person that you're with as well. I think that's really just having a space where it's judgment free. For once, for us neurodivergent individuals, we just don't want to be judged. Just can say what we want to say.
Yeah, but that reminds me, Madeline, I really liked what you had to say about rejection sensitive dysphoria, which I always talk about. Like everybody remembers exactly where they were the first time they heard that term because it says so much. I feel like it explains so much about our experience with emotions and and the lack of judgment and the forgiveness you had for yourself about, being apologizing a lot, or being really, not, feeling like you were having a really, really abnormal or intense reaction to a situation. And instead of saying, like, here's how you could not have that reaction, you really was wrote to yourself about, like, of course you're going to have that reaction. This is, you have big emotions. It makes complete sense. And I think we could all use a little bit more of that approach, right? Which is that curiosity. Of course you're going to react this way. Sometimes I think we jump to the like, how can I be normal? And how can I stop being more like myself? And actually, I feel like you use the term normal in your book too. I'm curious what you would say to somebody who, a younger person who says, I just want to be normal."
I'd say I'm still trying to figure that out myself. Like it's still hard for me too, but I'm learning more and more how to be myself. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's such a good answer because I think like we sometimes we do want to just say like, oh, I just wish I didn't have this sensitivity, or I wish it was easier for me to meet new people and I don't stress this much when I do lives, for example. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years and I still get super anxious. But it's kind of like you're managing it, but understanding, being okay with it, and then working through it, like Madeline was saying, it's something that we're trying to figure out is okay. That's all right too. We don't have to have all the answers.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
And then I think after that, getting to a place where you realize, oh, it's actually my intensity that is my gift, and seeing the superpower side, as I don't like that word, but
Mm,
I think there are ways in which we can start to recognize a lot of the time that the things that caused us the most suffering at one point end up being the things that we love and appreciate the most about ourselves.
yeah, definitely the way that we see the world. I think Madeline's way of seeing like the detail, the
Yeah.
tiny detail, right, of the axolotls, for example.
Yeah. I know, like, I notice like things that other people will not notice, like certain details. Like, for example, like if there's something hidden, like I'm really good at the hidden picture books. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like where you try to find certain things that are hidden, like every time I can find it.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I love that. Um, and I think really reminding ourselves that, you know, like what I guess my next question would be, what do you love most about your neurodivergence, your autism, both of you, or Karla, your ADHD?
Do you want to go first, Madeline, or do you want me to go first?
You could go first.
So for me, I would say kind of what you said, Katie, with the intensity, but also just that intuitive sense when I meet somebody for the first time and I know that this is just going to be the person that I want to talk with. I think we kind of flock together, us very intuitive, empathic individuals. So I love that I work in this field because I have the honor of meeting neurodivergent individuals on a daily basis and learning from all of my clients. I want to say friends, but I need to stay professional. But yeah, I think it's that intense love that I'm seeing the connection with neurodivergent individuals, even if it is on a Zoom call. And I feel like we really know how to connect on a deeper level. Whereas I think a lot of times in the world today, we're missing that connection and people are just waiting to talk or respond. Whereas I think with neurodivergent individuals, we really do get to the second layer and the third layer of connection. Yeah. Don't know if you want to add to what do you love about the way that you see the world, Madeline?
I think I love that, like, I'm more understanding of people with disabilities because I have a disability. So I think that's something, and that um, just that I see the world differently through a different lens.
Hmm. Yeah, right. Carla, as you were talking, you reminded me of what my son said when he was younger. He said, "I'm like you, Mom. I like the big talk, not the small talk." And,
Nice.
um, and I've often said, like, when I know when I'm talking to somebody who's neurodivergent, because I feel like completely relaxed, like I've just
Mm,
like taken off a too tight pair of pants or taken my bra
yeah.
off or something, where I'm like, ah, I just feel like we're speaking the same language, and I take it for granted on the podcast, but it's when I'm kind of out in the world talking to other people that I realize how stressful it can be to just
Mm,
talk to other people. Um, yeah.
yeah. And just noticing like my body posture, everything, when I'm not doing my sessions, I start like seeing how my shoulders are going up and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm masking. I shouldn't be doing this. Actually, Madeline's got a nice letter of masking in her book too, but that feeling of that you need to pretend and smile and laugh at the right times, that is exhausting.
Just,
Um, yeah, sorry, I was just pulling up the when I realize I'm masking journal entry. I have the book up in front of me now. Um, yeah, what do you do in those moments when you realize you're in like your whole body is tense so that you're masking?
um, I try just to realize, like, recognize what I'm doing, and then, um, like, I do mask in front of people that I don't know that well, but in front of people that I do know, I feel free to be myself.
Hmm. Do you
I think
feel like
sometimes,
it's, oh, go ahead,
sorry.
Carla.
Sorry, I remember sometimes, Madeline, when we talk, you'll say to me things like, "Oh, I was just laughing there, but I felt a bit uncomfortable." Like you would notice it, and you would actually say it to me sometimes. So, which I think is quite good because that makes you more aware of when you're doing it. Like I would now, when I start laughing in a group, like because I've got social anxiety. I would pause and be like, it wasn't funny. I didn't even know what the joke was. I just saw people laugh, so I laughed, and that makes me more anxious because what if they're going to ask me questions about the joke? Like I think the past trauma comes back. So I would pause, like what Madeline does sometimes with our sessions or times together, and just say, that wasn't actually what I felt. So I would step away and just take a breath and just notice how anxious I am and maybe just go to the bathroom and take a few deep breaths and then go out again.
Hmm. I love that. I'm going to try that. It's like, because even like you said, just in that moment, giving yourself permission to say, that's not how I had that reaction and I understand why I had that reaction, but that's not actually how I'm feeling. And just naming that, I think,
Mm.
like even as you were just saying it, Karla, I started to relax, because
Yes.
I've been in that situation so often where it's like, why is everybody laughing? Um, what do I do
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah. I love. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Now I'm curious, Madeline, do you feel like Thailand is more accepting of disability and neurodivergence or differences? Or given the fact that we're all over the world right now and in so many different cultures, I'm curious to hear your both of your opinions about um, how neurodivergence is viewed where you are.
Yeah, sure. Can my mom come in?
Of course, Angie. Welcome.
Thanks. Um, there is very limited access to help for neurodivergent people here. Not many services, not much of an understanding of it. It's actually seen as a curse, and they hide their children away. Or my husband teaches English in some of the schools, and he'll notice neurodivergent kids, and they're just in the back of the room. There's not services for them at the schools.
Mhm.
We work with a foundation that serves families and kids with disabilities, and we have one occupational therapy place here in the city that I live. And some of the kids that we work with, they go for therapy once every 6 weeks,
Mhm.
once
Mhm.
maybe, so not a lot of understanding or help for them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I hope some of them are going to get a chance to read your book, Madeline, and hear your perspective.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Angie shows it to some of the kids that she's helping. So and she has seen some of the strategies that the kids are utilizing. So that's great. I think that's where it starts. Like some families helping others, and then it's got this kind of like snowball effect, hopefully.
Mhm.
But yeah, even in Portugal, I mean, I love living here, and I do think that there are some great initiatives focusing on neurodivergence, and it's definitely evolving the understanding of autism, ADHD, but it's still not where it should be. And I think we're at a narrative at the moment where it's us versus them, which I also don't like. I don't love that narrative of like, okay, so let's make accommodations for neurodivergent individuals. Whereas I would see true inclusion as let's learn from everybody to make it better for everybody. Because I still think if you're doing let's accommodate, we're seen as ADHDers or autistic individuals or ADHDers are seen as it's a little bit of a charity feeling to me. It's like, oh, we'll do this for you to make it better for you. But it's actually the accommodations that we require as neurodivergent individuals, better communication, a sensory friendly environment to learn in, understanding, curiosity, those things are great for everybody. They're
Mhm.
not just great for neurodivergent individuals. So I think we can optimize an environment from learning our needs per se, but then not seeing it as it's a charity case. It really is going to make everything better. Our empathy towards one another in general, like just learning from people and not judging it, being curious and not saying that what you're doing or thinking is wrong, staying curious with other people. I think it's just a better way of being human.
Right, I agree. I mean, I think, accommodations benefit everybody a lot of the time, right? I think, is it called universal design? I think, that
Yes.
idea of I'm thinking about a curb at a corner and the dip in the curve, which is, there for wheelchairs, but then it benefits everybody. And I think, if we took more of that approach, like you said, instead of the rolling
Mhm.
eyes and, well, if we accommodate you, we have to accommodate everybody. Like, well, then yeah,
Mhm.
let's do that because they really do benefit everybody. Um,
Exactly.
uh, yeah, I think one of the conversations I have a lot on this podcast too is the as we expand the spectrum of neurodivergence and who is under that umbrella. A lot of people feel like it's a disservice to those people who are in the highest need category in terms of it's watering it down or making it less uh, we're taking away services from, or we're making it more difficult for people who with high support needs who need services. And I feel like how you just phrased it, Karla, in terms of like, well, we should be looking at how we can make everything as accessible as possible for everyone, is a nice antidote to that
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah, I think if we box people less and we see it as, okay, well, we can learn from everybody and we can accommodate everybody's different types of profiles. I think we're just at a better stage because once we start polarizing, there's always going to be a this is better than that kind of narrative, which I don't believe in.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's an ongoing evolution, hopefully for the better of all of us.
Um, Well, I mean, I'm very excited to. So, Karla, your website is Karla Pretorius. Is it Pretoria? I'm just tell.
Pretorius, yes.
Okay,
Pretorius.
karlapretorius.com, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And then I'll have a link to, I guess, Amazon for Madeline, your book, in the show notes and on my website. But is there anything we haven't covered, or anything you still wanted to talk about the book or about your journey?
My, yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah. What about
Yeah,
you, Karla? Is there anything you want to make sure we tell
um,
listeners?
well, I think with the what I've learned from Madeline and her process is that just finding the confidence in whatever you like and going with it and finding a safe space to do so really makes a massive difference. So if it is with the therapist, it's with the therapist, or if it's with a parent or a friend, or finding a mentor in a way. And I'm really honored that I've been mentoring, well, she's been mentoring me more, but mentoring each other. But I think just having also the support from parents saying, look, this is your space. We give you free will to go with the process. Her parents have been wonderful in that regard. They've given me a lot of trust working with her on a weekly basis. But I think it is, if you don't have that, if you don't have that support from parents, to find somebody that you can feel safe with. If it is an animal, start with an animal and then move over to finding a person that accepts you for who you are, so that you can also feel like you can go with what works for you. So if it is writing, or if it is drawing, or if it is, like doing arts or learning more in the fields, just find something that you absolutely love and accepting yourself through that process. I think it helps a lot with the confidence.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know if that made sense, but that's my
Yeah, no,
ADHD
absolutely.
way
I
of
was just going to say, I
saying it.
noticed you didn't say find an AI chatbot.
No,
Like
no, I'm
find
not a big fan of that.
find an animal or a human or something something tangible who could where you could feel
Yeah,
safe with and safe to
yeah.
be yourself, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
beautiful.
think with AI, I think it's great in rewriting the way that we initially want to say something to another person. I use it a lot in saying, okay, please just rewrite this in a nicer way or a more professional way. But I think if we really want that true connection, authentic connection, it needs to be with a living being that's not just saying things that are out there already. I think it needs to be with somebody that is actually just sitting with you and listening. That I think is not what AI is giving because it's waiting to respond and validate whatever you're saying, which is also not always the best psychological approach, right?
Right. Yeah, I know. I feel like that could be a whole other episode.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not get into that. No.
Um, well, I, for one, just want to thank you for this project and thank you for publishing this book. It was very healing to read it. And as somebody on the other side of the world, I really just, I'm so glad that it's out there and I'll do what I can to help make sure other people can get a chance to read it. And, um, yeah, thank you. I wish you both all the best, and it's been a real pleasure to meet you and um, yeah, have this experience. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Katie. This has been lovely. We could definitely continue talking to you, and it's been a whole hour already.
So I've brought Karla back so that she and I can have just some time to kind of process the interview with Madeline, but also I wanted to hear a little bit more about you, Karla, and the work that you're doing and the research that you're doing, especially the research well, I guess your research is on women and ADHD. So can you tell me a little bit more about what you're working on?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me back. It was lovely to speak with you and Madeline. And so, what I do is I'm a therapist, and I'm currently busy focusing on my PhD specifically on ADHD and women. I don't think that there's enough of a focus on women specifically. And I think every gender should be looked at differently, and because we present so differently. So, my goal through research, which is a big goal, I think, is to combine academic writings and journals and what we know in academia with lived experience. And because I have ADHD myself, I feel like I can hopefully bring those two together. I think that as clinicians, we don't focus enough on what is actually going on, not just our inattention, but the anxiety that we feel when people say that we're not paying attention, or the low mood that we're feeling because we can't keep relationships going. It's not about the symptoms as much as the feelings and the emotions that we have surrounding those kind of characteristics or symptoms. I don't think I answered your question though.
You did actually. It made me think about, a lot of what I experienced as somebody who was diagnosed with depression and then anxiety long before I was diagnosed with ADHD is the way that I think a lot of the time in the therapy world, there's the eagerness to diagnose immediately or, to label what it is we're experiencing. And so many of the women I've spoken to and the clients I've worked with had negative experiences with therapy because there was a sense that like you're just depressed or you just have anxiety and you're kind of put in this box. And then the treatment is based on that one presenting
Mm,
concern and not kind of, panning back and looking at the whole picture in terms of like what led to this depression, what led to this um, anxiety and how are they intermingled and and what's the trauma that is coming from a lot of your experiences of invalidation, et cetera. And
mm,
I think there's such a focus on evidence-based practices
yeah.
and like solving the issue as quickly as possible and not really thinking about the neurobiology behind some of these
Yeah.
diagnoses. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it, the neurobiology of it. We need to look at the neurodivergent lens through a neurodivergent lens, because if we are just going to manage or treat anxiety or depression, we're not looking at why are we going through these intense emotions and feelings. We're looking at you shouldn't be anxious in this situation because you're safe. Okay, but what about before that, all of the thought processes that led to not feeling safe or psychologically safe in that situation? And that's the neurodivergent lens that we really need to understand as clinicians, and provide support for that, because otherwise we're always going to feel like we're doing something wrong. And I think that's quite a common feeling for us neurodivergent individuals is what did we do wrong now? Which is horrible.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you put things.
Thank you.
Um, um, uh, so now you mostly work with ADHD, or how did you start working with autistic clients like Madeline?
So I've worked with neurodivergent individuals before we were called neurodivergent individuals. When 21 years ago, I started in the field, and I kind of just fell in love with the way that individuals thought differently. And it was first in America. I was actually on a tennis scholarship in the States, and I was a tennis coach. And they used to put me always with the ADHD kids or the autistic kids, and they said, "Oh, you're good with those kids." And I mean, now we know the reason because I connect so well with them. But I love the way that they thought outside the box and they pushed the limits and they would ask random questions that weren't really related to tennis. And I was like, these minds are amazing. So that was my mission when I went back to South Africa, where I'm from. I wanted to work with an autistic child. And this is back in the day when you still opened the newspaper and you looked for jobs in the newspaper, an actual newspaper. And I just saw this ad that said, therapist needed, no experience needed. We will train you on the job to work with an autistic girl. And she was 3 at that point, and started working with her. Her mom doesn't mind me saying her name. Her name is Akila. I'm still very good friends with her. She's 23 now. She still messages me every day. So yeah, that's how I started. And throughout the journey, I think I realized, okay, the reason why I connect so well with autistic individuals and ADHDers is because I see the world similarly. And my therapist then said, yeah, but it's because you've got ADHD. And then later mentioned that probably ADHD. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I'm experiencing right now as I'm in my internship is seeing neurodivergence in every single client and really trying to figure out like, is there even such thing as a client who is just depressed or
Yeah.
just anxious? And I feel like it makes sense that as, and especially working with teenagers, neurodivergence, like that's where we end up. We end up in therapy, we end up in crisis clinics. But because, like you said, there's that narrative of what's wrong with me in terms of my worldview and always feeling a little different and other. I don't know what my question was. I guess I don't know. Have you ever come across somebody that you were like, you're definitely not neurodivergent? Sorry, let me take some water. Have you ever worked with a client where you were like, this is not neurodivergence, this is just depression, or this is just anxiety?
I specialize in neurodivergence. So my clients usually find me because of my socials, and I'm so focused on neurodivergence, which I absolutely love working in that field. And I think that we should specialize as therapists and become more and more knowledgeable about the different types of conditions and profiles that we work with, because there's so much to learn. But to answer your question, I don't see it as neurodivergent versus neurotypical. And I also think it's a bit of a dangerous narrative, because then we're not seeing everybody as one and we can learn from one another. So I do see everyone as having a specific profile. So you might be more inclined towards a low mood or anxiety or more of an ADHD type of way of working or an autistic way of working. And then you have like some of these other traits like anxiety or OCD or depression. But I don't see it as like you just get this normal person. I think a person masks really well, but there's definitely, and this is a bit controversial because I'm now saying the opposite, but there's definitely people that think that a certain way of doing things or finishing tasks or interacting with individuals on a very surface level is normal and that's fine for them. Maybe it is that, and I don't want to offend anyone, but maybe it is that they're not looking a little bit further and questioning those societal norms, and really leaning into their neurodivergent potential brain. Maybe that's it. I don't think we know for sure, other than what we know in neuropsych, where we do know that ADHD brains are differently wired, and autistic brains, some parts are differently lit up with certain tasks. So I think we can take from science and then also maybe say that we're all a little bit different, and we need to embrace it, like, and not be as scared of the differences so that we can actually learn from one another and not make accommodations for a group.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
And I think I was gonna ask, shut I, it's too early in the morning for me. Sorry. I was like, I lost my train of thought. The I mean, there is, I think where I get concerned, or where I'm, mostly curious about the blurring of the lines in terms of high support needs and low support needs, and this idea of like, if there's a lot of people who have low support needs who are becoming the kind of mouthpieces for neurodivergence in the autism community, are they doing a disservice to the families with really, really high support needs who require, this to be taken seriously, quote unquote, or, there are a lot of parents who feel like that this is that the expansion of the definition of what is or isn't autistic and what is or isn't neurodivergent, and as we begin to understand more about masking and the ways in which it presents in different genders, et cetera, like what do you say to families that feel like their children aren't, or worry that their children aren't going to get the help that they need, or that that people won't take them seriously enough in terms of their need for accommodations? Does
Yeah,
that
it's
make
a
sense?
difficult question because it's a very hard process for parents to know what's going to happen in the future, right? And there are so many stressors that they have. Just being a parent of any child, I take my hat off to all parents, but to know that your child will need accommodations, and you don't know what that would look like or if they will receive that, that's very stressful. And I would say to try as much as possible to trust the process and know that there are people, really, I'm trying my best, and I know so many other advocates that are fighting for a neuro-affirming environment, schools and workplaces. And we are evolving, but try as much as possible to just stay in the moment, and just be with your child and go with them because they're going to surprise you. I've seen it time and time again with the very many children that I've worked with, that they surprise our expectations, if they just have that space of they can just be themselves. In terms of the high versus low support needs, that's a question that I think is good to have, but I think we should focus more on the awareness. Like, it's good to for anyone to be aware that there are individuals with certain accommodations, whether it's high needs or low needs. The more we speak, the better. And obviously, it is more difficult if you're a non-speaker to get the words out there. But there are individuals there, like Ido Kadar. There are many individuals that write, like Madeline too. And it's good to read those writings. And I think it's a difficult, it's again, it's a difficult question because I feel like I present as high, like highly intelligent, and people think, oh, she can eloquently sometimes say what she wants. But I have so much anxiety, Katie. Like as I'm sitting here, my neck is completely red. I'm scratching my nails kind of off because I'm nervous. And I've been doing this for 21 years, but people don't see that. So is that low support? Like, yes, okay, I don't need somebody to sit here with me, but after this, I need like a decompression hour. So I'm not comparing. I'm just saying that everyone is going through something, everyone. And maybe it is up to us to just know that we can give anyone and everyone a little bit of space and grace and just be curious about their journey. And if there's something we can do, I think people are innately good. If there's something that we can do to make the life of our neighbor a little bit better, wouldn't we do it? I think we would if we know.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and as you were speaking, it reminded me of what you said in our earlier conversation too about, the reminder that accommodations are a societal issue. They're not an individual issue, right? And so I would find that there might be some God, my anxiety issue shows up in not knowing where my where my questions are going. But like is there some like consolation in knowing that the more mouthpieces there are for an issue highlighting the societal deficits, as opposed to saying we need more individual accommodations, kind of what you were talking about, that as we widen the lens a little bit, that is actually could be argued as helpful for looking at this as a societal issue and not, highlighting the individual issues and what they need. And I suppose as a parent, especially, with my own kids, looking at like, I need them to have what they need right now. And I, might not have the time or bandwidth to really think about the societal issue. So I hope there's ways in which these different ends of the spectrum in the community can be working together for, like you said, for the same goal of wider acceptance and understanding.
Yeah, I think I was speaking to two people, Fred and Andy, yesterday, about this thing that we're this concept that we're talking about. They do irregular training, which is I love the name for them, at organizations. And what they were saying is that there aren't really like specific things that we can tell people to accommodate for neurodivergent individuals in the workplace. But what we can do is take away barriers. And I think that's for all people really a great focus point is how can we take away barriers? Like when back in the day when we didn't have ramps for wheelchairs, now we have ramps for wheelchairs, and it actually helps a lot of people. I don't want to climb stairs when I'm really tired after Muay Thai. The ramp is really nice, and I can also help somebody that's going up with their wheelchair if they need help, or an older lady that has like groceries or something. So it's helping everybody. I think it's to see like this whole design, universal design that we were speaking about as well. It's like changing for the better for everyone. And then it's less of this is what you need to do for my child or for me, which I think can get a bit frustrating for the person advocating and also the people hearing it, because we don't want to, as humans, we don't want to be wrong, right? We don't want to be hearing what we did wrong. But if you tell me, Karla, I love coming to your, dinner. I don't do well with sound or noise. I'm gonna sit in the corner. I don't feel offended, but I might feel offended if you said, as Katie, like I'm just making up this conversation now, but if you said, look, Karla, it's always loud at your place. I can't come anymore. That I feel like is a personal attack. So I mean, not personally me, but that usually people would take that as a personal attack. So I think it's the way that we communicate our needs and also stating that it's something that we can do communally together. I think it's the connection that we're missing again. Like it's not us versus them. It's let's hold hands together. Like during COVID time, I honestly think that was one of the best eras for neurodivergent individuals. We felt connected, but we didn't feel like we had to do all this like social interaction. And I know I'm sorry if it was a very intense period for a lot of people, because of the tragedies. But sorry, I can't say that word. But I think for neurodivergent individuals, that feeling of we're one, we're connected, but we don't have to hold hands. There's space. That was a really nice analogy for me of how we can work together.
Yeah, right. Well, I've often said during lockdown was the first time in my life I ever felt regulated or
Yeah.
remembered feeling regulated. And I was diagnosed at the beginning of the pandemic, because of a lot of the stressors happening. And my therapist, like yours, kept recommending to me that I look into ADHD. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I can sit, I can't get off the couch. I'm not hyperactive. But like realizing that, the quiet. And, I think I also realized that I was what I like to call a gregarious introvert. I'm
Mm,
like, which I think, a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of neurodivergents feel this way, but like I always thought couldn't be an introvert because I loved talking to people and I loved meeting people and I loved, you know, um, being out and about. And so I figured I couldn't be an introvert. I didn't really realize that introversion doesn't mean that you're shy or that you are antisocial. And so there was that feeling of like, oh, I'm regulated. Like this, it probably wasn't even a term I had learned before the pandemic too.
mm, yeah.
So I think the pandemic offered us a lot of opportunities to look within and sort of say
Mm,
like, oh, who am I? Um,
mm. And
yeah.
just enjoying that space, like I enjoyed the quiet and the space and being able to do my own thing and not feel the pressure of, oh, I need to do it with somebody. That I really enjoyed. And I took from that, okay, I'm gonna continue going to the movies by myself or going to a restaurant and having a meal by myself. And I feel a lot less anxious. One tip that I would say is just take a book with, because as soon as we notice, oh, we're out in the wild in society, we're like, oh, should I be on my phone? Like, should I pretend that my date didn't arrive or whatever? But no, if you have a book there, you don't look peculiar.
Um, are there, I guess, are there any like myths about autism, especially in adolescence, that you feel like you see a lot or that you wish you could uh dispel?
Yeah, so many. The one that always pops up for me is the friendship one. I see most of my clients are lonely, and most of them really want to have friends that accept them for who they are. They just want to be themselves with another person and just like parallel play and feel like they're not being looked at under a magnifying glass. So I think that's one of the biggest ones. And then also just yeah, I mean, the social part is definitely one thing, but another thing is that we often believe that autistic individuals have these very intense statements or thought processes, and it's because they believe in that and that's it, and they don't think about your point of view. But it's actually because they have this sense of justice and they know that this is the right thing to do, and they know that they are going to get in trouble or not be looked at the right way, for example, or somebody is going to think that they're too intense. They know this. We know this, but it's something that we can't help. And it's not to hurt or to be the contrarian. We're like autistic individuals really do just, it's like something that they can't not state or say. My ex is autistic and he would say things and he would just, that is the truth. And somebody would be like, yeah, but can you just say it a little bit more gentle? And he's like, yeah, well, but why? Because this is what I'm trying to state. And it wasn't to hurt other people. I think it's very much a feeling of being misunderstood a lot of times. And that pushes people away. So it has this cycle of, okay, so then I'm not gonna have friends, and I'm being lonely, I'm gonna be lonely, and something wrong with me, and then it's quite a negative snowball effect. That's quite sad. So I would say try not to try not to get offended by autistic individuals because they're not trying to hurt you. It's how their brain works. They want to get this point across for the greater good, Sometimes it's like it's just factual. I just need you to know this. And it's not such a big deal, it's okay. And then we can move on and speak about our interest and really just get to know each other and stay curious about our amazing brains.
Mhm. Um, yeah, very well put. And I think also have some curiosity too. That's one of the things that I find really frustrating for just now in working with a lot of neurodivergent young people. Um, like you said, it's really just about having curiosity about who they are and why they think the way they think. And I've sort of have reflected on my own rigid thinking. A lot of my rigid thinking shows up in curiosity, where it's like I'm happy to be proved wrong, but I like have this dogged pursuit of the answer in a way that irritates a lot of people, where they feel like, well, why does it matter? And I'm like, I don't know, it just does.
Does. But it does.
It
Yeah. It's
does, right?
something you can't get over it. Like if somebody says something that is inconsistent, and I've been in so many arguments about this. Like if my professor says one thing and then the next day she contradicts what she said, I have to point it out. I have to. I can't be quiet and just say, oh, yeah, water from a duck's back or whatever that saying is. I'm not a duck. I'm gonna state it. Mm.
Um, Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about AIMS. So I love your website, which has like all the different organizations that you're part of. I'm like, if the signs weren't there all along. I love that, where it's like, the hardest question to ask somebody with ADHD is like,
Oh,
so what do you do? And you're like,
oh.
oh God. Um,
I
so
ADHD.
right. But how did you get part of AIMS? Is that how you found Madeline's family, or no, they approached you out of
Yeah,
the
I
blue?
think that actually, yeah, they did get me through Ames Global. So Ames Global is the initial company that I started with Nanette Buerta. We place therapists to live with families, mainly of autistic kids, neurodivergent kids in general. We still do that, but that's not my main focus now. It's kind of running in the background. We have our families all over, and they've got their au pairs and therapists living with them, which is really nice. I did my master's thesis actually on the efficacy of having a therapist in the house. And I mean, as you can imagine, it's really positive. It's a positive experience for parents to have somebody there that can just take or give them some respite, which I think parents really need. And just a moment to not worry, just go on a date night. So that went really well. But as a true ADHDer, I wanted to do so many more things. So I do quite a lot of stuff. So I am a clinical lead for 3 startups, where I help with the direction, the clinical direction, and just kind of the framework, the psychological framework of things. I am a therapist. I do one-on-ones, groups. I do ADHD woman groups as well with ADHD doers. So that's an Instagram page that I work with. And then what else do I do? I do my PhD. I'm learning Portuguese. There are a few things that I'm missing, but I think I found that if I don't have all these different projects, that I will create drama in my life. And that's what I did when I was younger. So now I'm so busy with all of these projects and I'm so stimulated that I love it. And, contrary to what my psychiatrist said, he said, Karla, you're very creative, but are you going to actually create something? I do, like it was quite offensive, right?
Right?
I was like, excuse me. No, but he's a nice guy. But he was trying to push me to get my PhD done. Um, I believe that we definitely have that sweet spot as ADHDers where we tend to overstimulate ourselves or understimulate when we're overwhelmed. But there's a sweet spot where it's okay, I know that I have enough projects right now. I have got like 5 big things that I'm working on, and I'm doing Muay Thai and, like rock climbing and so on. And that is enough. It's like a feeling. And I know as a scientist, I shouldn't be saying this, but it's not a scientific fact. It's just, I feel like I shouldn't add anything. And if I take away anything, then I'm going to be bored. So I'm at that sweet spot right now. And I would highly recommend finding each person's sweet spot, finding those passion projects so that it's not just 8 to 5 work that we have to do, unfortunately, sometimes for money. But it is like, okay, I'm doing my own projects. I'm creating, I'm being creative and passionate about something, and I'm starting something new, hobby hopping. Why is that a bad thing? I've done so many things in my life, and it's because I do it for 6 months, buy the gear, and then I sell it, and then I do something else. It's fine.
Yeah, right. Don't question the process.
Yes.
That's what I've come to learn, which is yeah. Um, I know I feel that most at tax time when my husband has his one W-2 and I have like 18 W-2s from all the different business ventures
Yeah.
and income streams and all the different projects that I'm working on. And it's like, yeah, no, that's how it works for me. But I like that idea of that sweet spot because that's another thing I've often said. One of the most difficult things for me about having ADHD is knowing and understanding when to say no to myself because I will
Mm.
always want to do, I will always, as I'm driving home, I'll look and just be like, oh, I want to become a librarian. I'm going to go do that, right? Or my big one is I desperately want to volunteer for the local fire department. And I'm like, no, that's not something you have time for. But I looked, I'll just sort of go down these mental, diversions. And so I think it's like, for me, I found the joy in just like daydreaming about things without actually
Mm,
following through. Um, but
that's so
sometimes I'll
that,
say like
yeah.
saying no to myself is really, really hard and people won't
Mm,
understand what I'm talking about. I'm like, well, you
mm.
don't like chase after every thought as it happens. That's
Yeah,
not a thing.
and now imagine, Katie, I'm working with clients and I've got about 8 clients a day, and then they would tell me about all these amazing hobbies, and I'm like, I can do needlework. I can do I can I can start candle making. Like, and then I have to really tell myself, like, pause, reflect, like take a breath, maybe just be happy for your client that they found something that they like. No, but yeah, it definitely exposes us to a lot of ideas. And I think that's one of the beauties of ADHD is we are so creative and curious. We want to learn about everything. If somebody asked me once, actually, there was the other day, they asked me, do you want to live, would you live forever? I was like, yeah, for sure. I would want to live another lifetime at least to get more things done. And I think that's what makes us also quite fun in our friendship circles and
Uh,
different.
yeah, yeah, well said. Great. Well, thank you for coming back and sharing with me a little bit more. And is there anything you're working on for the new year or anything we haven't covered?
So for the new year, I am doing the ADHD women groups with ADHD doers. And I really need to, I'm starting next week actually for a festive anxiety. So that's, festive period anxiety that we all have. I feel like all these expectations and so on. Um, And then I really need to focus on my studies because that's the one thing that I'm not so excited about. So I think for now, I'm trying to carve out time, and that just, if I can give one strategy, it is to have like these carved out times for passion projects and then carved out times for the things that we just absolutely need to do, because otherwise we'll always go and lean towards the passion projects.
Mm,
But yeah, no, no, I think we covered
yeah.
everything. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute joy, and go ADHD dears.
Great. Well, if you have a link or anything, I will put that in the show notes for the women's group. Is a virtual group.
Yes, yeah,
That's,
yeah, it's a virtual group.
is
Yes,
it?
we do it weekly.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they can, I mean, I'll send you my Instagram page. I think you might have it already. Therapy.neurodivergent.
Yep, that'll be in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
they can just contact me, and yeah, it's just a fun group for women.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. So go follow Karla and sign up for this for the women's group through ADHD doers, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Perfect.